Press play now. Discover the sinister secrets of 7 haunted nights that people never survived. The old VHS tape lay there like a forgotten tombstone in a dusty graveyard, glaring at Sarah with a challenge. Press play now. Discover the sinister secrets of 7 haunted nights that people never survived. Just the title screamed morbidity, as if it knew its contents could snare her children and drag them into a world painted with dread. Uneasy energy crackled in the dingy backroom of the convenience store, the flickering fluorescent lights barely illuminating the clutter around her. The spine-chilling panic that enveloped her reminded Sarah that she couldn't afford to let fear control her anymore. She was a warrior, fighting against the odds to keep her children safe. With Halloween closing in, the evenings became darker, the shadows deeper. On her drive home, each flickering streetlight felt like a taunting wink from the universe. "You're too late." Faded decorations hung limply from porches, whispering ghostly secrets about a decaying suburban neighborhood. Jason and Lily would be asleep by the time she slipped inside their small house, a little haven they called home as the clock ticked away the hours and the darkness grew thicker. Sarah's heart tightened with a mix of love and worry. She silently wished she could awaken that childhood magic masked by their economic struggles. That night, as shadows crept into every corner, Jason and Lily fumbled through their grimy living room in search of entertainment. When they discovered the tape, curiosity sparked like a flame in the darkness. It would be their secret, one that would lead them down an unthinkable path. Popcorn popped in eager anticipation until they started the movie, pulling them into a whirlpool of fear, blood, and twisted memories of neighborhood life. Each demonic morbid tale unveiled their suburban world like a rotting, blackened Cora landscape tainted by corrupt leaders and deceitful neighbors. Grotesque apparitions unfurled before them, their forms grotesque and malicious, weaving a grip of hysteria around the children's innocent minds. Jason and Lily clutched each other tight, blankets too thin to shield against the grotesque horrors on screen. As a lone ghostly figure frightfully crept down their street, their blood ran cold. Was it mere fiction, or were they already entangled in something far more sinister? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the last story faded to black, a chilling silence engulfed the room, suffocating the air until it was palpable. Faint whispers danced around them, clawing at their innocence, making the hairs on the back of their necks stand tall. Something felt off, a persistent sense that they were not alone. When Sarah returned home, the air crawled with an unsettling chill. The room pulsed with an unseen tension. Jason's wild eyes and Lily's quivering form confirmed that nightmares had seeped into their reality. "Did you watch the tape?" she demanded, voice trembling. Jason's horror-stricken confession echoed in the stillness, unveiling the monstrous ties linking their beloved neighbor, Mr. Hughes, to the stories they had just witnessed. Paranoia stung as they connected the dots, and the lurking threat hung like a dark cloud over the sanctuary they called home. Each new twitch, each flickering light, propelled Sarah deeper into an abyss of fear. Shadows loomed larger on the walls, and strange sounds filled the air, gnawing at what little hope she had left. She would have to confront what betrayed them in the heart of their small world, but would she be able to protect her children from the twisted truths that lay ahead? As she reached for the door that led to Mr. Hughes, his familiar laughter echoed like a solitary ghost, a sound once trusted, now infected with terror. Fear clutched at her heart as she stood frozen, realization dawning that they might be staring into an abyss far darker than she had ever imagined. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, each beat echoing the dread pulsating through her fingertips as she reached for the doorknob. The chill of the metal seeped into her skin, an icy reminder of the grotesque stories that had twisted their lives upside down. "Mom!" Jason's whisper broke the oppressive silence, pulling her back from the edge of her terror. His voice trembled, straining to break through the thick atmosphere suffocating them. What if he really is like the stories? Lily, still clutching the edge of the sofa, sunk deeper into its gloom. "I don't want to go outside, Mom," she whimpered, casting terrified glances between the door and her brother. The old door looked innocuous enough, yet it felt like the boundary between two worlds, the safety of their home and the nightmarish reality that lurked beyond. With a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself. She wouldn't let fear win. "Stay close. All of you," she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. As she opened the door, the hinges creaked like a warning. A shiver ran down her spine, a cold reminder of the sinister tales that wove through their community. The streetlights outside buzzed with an eerie hum, flickering uncertainly, casting long shadows that danced along the pavement. Together, they ventured out, their small group a lone island in a sea of darkness. Each step felt heavy, the pavement gripping their soles like quicksand. Sarah's eyes darted around, scanning for any sign of Mr. Hughes. The stories had painted him as a monster. But could he really be what the tales described? "Why does it feel like he's watching us?" Jason muttered, the unease palpable in his voice. She felt it too. The prickle on the back of her neck. The way the night seemed to thicken around them, compressing the air. As they approached the house next door, an eerie light flickered through the window, a pale glow that didn't belong. The glow pulsed, swaying rhythmically, almost hypnotically. Mom Lily tugged on her sleeve. "I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart. We're just checking." But even as Sarah spoke, her voice wavered, confidence crumbling with each step closer. With horror creeping into her heart, she led her children to the porch, the warped wooden planks creaking under their weight. The door stood ajar, inviting yet foreboding. What lay within? She swallowed hard, glancing at Jason and Lily, their faces pinched with fear. "Let's just take a peek together," she said, forcing her voice to sound more confident than she felt. With their hands clasped tightly together, they inched toward the door. As they crossed the threshold, the air inside felt thick, saturated with a musty scent that clawed at their throats. Shadows loomed, and for a moment, they were paralyzed with the weight of dread pressing down against them. Then came a sound, a low, soft laugh. There was Mr. Hughes, exactly as the tales described. His eyes sparkled with mischief, but his smile was twisted, unnatural. "Welcome, welcome. I've been expecting you." His voice slithered through the air, choking their hopes and igniting a primal instinct to run. "Mom!" Jason cried, the scream splitting the electric tension. Without thinking, Sarah turned, dragging her children behind her, but the door was already swinging shut, a shadow blocking their escape. Trapped. The laughter reverberated off the walls, resonating with the grim truths creeping into their world. Panic surged through her veins. She felt the walls breathing, closing in, and another layer of darkness enveloping them. As the laughter crescendoed, bright flashes of memory erupted in her mind, tales of lost souls and twisted fates. A sick realization set in, tightening like a noose. The tape, it wasn't just a tape. Run! But her command fizzled in the air as dread crashed down like a wave. The house loomed around them, a prison of nightmares stretching ahead, the laughter echoing in chill-inducing harmonies. What had they unleashed? Would they ever escape? And then, behind them, a voice as cold as ice, a heartbeat away from their spine. "You're just in time for the real show." The darkness pooled around them, thick and suffocating. Sarah felt Jason clutch her arm tight, his nails digging in, a desperate hold on his last thread of security. Lily whimpered softly, the sound barely breaking through the clamor of blood rushing through her ears. "Stay behind me," she murmured, though she could barely muster the confidence to believe the protective role she had taken on. The walls of the house seemed to pulse, breathing alongside them, exuding an entirely unnatural heat that pressed against her skin. Hughes moved through the shadows, and the flickering light illuminated glints of something sharp, knives, perhaps. They followed him like loyal dogs, reflecting the twisted mirth of their master. His laugh echoed again, chilling her to the bone, each note layered with malicious intent. "Why are you afraid?" Hughes asked, his tone mocking. You've heard the stories, but who's to say they aren't just tales? Maybe you'll find something different, something exciting. Jason shivered, his eyes darting to the door now firmly shut behind them. Mom, we need to get out. Don't let him get in your head, Sarah said, trying to inject a sense of strength despite the tremors in her voice. Listen to me. But even as she spoke, she could see the shifting walls of the living room around them, shadows darting in the corners, whispering secrets only to the dark. The room seemed to close in on them, a space once normal now felt like a cage. Look at my show. Hugh's voice sliced through the air, sweet yet terrifying. He motioned theatrically, revealing an old television in the corner, its screen thickly coated in dust, the edges gleaming ominously. As he fiddled with the dials, the static crackled to life, illuminating the room in jagged bursts of light. Press play. He cackled, his eyes wide with delight. What's that? Lily squeaked, hiding her face against Sarah's side. Something from the past, Mr. Hughes replied, grinning wickedly. Just memories of those who came before you. They wanted to see and now you will too. Sarah's stomach twisted. The memories of others? Were they trapped here, like echoes of lost souls? She could already sense the weight of something unseen bearing down on her, ushering her toward the screen. Do you want to be entertained? The word entertained dropped from Hugh's lips like a sinister promise. He leaned in closer, his voice low. You'd be amazed at what you can learn, what you can see. All you have to do is watch. The TV flickered, images swirling into view. Faces appeared familiar yet twisted, mouths moving in silent screams. Sarah could feel the heat of panic rising in her chest. No, we won tea, she whispered, backing away. But Jason's voice, unexpectedly bold, broke into her thoughts. We need to see. We need to know what this is. No. Sarah shouted, grabbing his arm. We need to leave. Yet Jason's eyes were locked on the screen, wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. But Mom. We can't ignore this. Hughes grinned like a predator, reveling in their struggle. Come now. It's all for the adventure. You're already here, you might as well enjoy the ride. Just then, the laughter returned, swirling around them like a fog. With each second, the air thickened more, and Sarah felt suffocated between her instincts and her children's desires. Run! She cried, her voice like glass shattering in the silence. But Jason stood frozen, captivated by the screen, while Lily let out a panicked cry, reaching for the flickering light as if it could pull her in. Fate waits for no one, Hughes declared, shadows stretching around them like chains. It seems you've already made your choice. The screen glowed brighter, shadows reaching for them, threatening to swallow them whole. Gripping her children tightly, Sarah turned, searching for an escape, the very fabric of reality seeming to warp and twist around them. What would they be forced to witness? And then, without warning, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed them, the laughter now echoing from all directions. In the pitch black, as the laughter faded into silence, Sarah's heart raced. They were lost, but were they truly lost, or was this just the beginning? What choice had they really made? What awaited them in the depths of that screen? And from the shadows, a new voice slithered forward, eager to be heard. Let the show begin. The darkness clung heavily to them, a cold embrace that stifled every breath. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, echoes of fear cascading through her body. Their small bubble of strength had collapsed, leaving them in a void where the sharp laughter of Mr. Hughes danced along the edges of nightmares. Jason. Lily. She called, her voice sounding fragile and small. Where are you? A shiver curled down her spine when she felt the chilling absence of their bodies close to hers. Panic surged, and her hands reached out into the black, slicing through nothing. The air thickened like molasses, suffocating any grounding thoughts. Right here. Jason's voice emerged, shaky yet defiant. Relief rippled through her, only to be replaced by urgency. "Stay close," she replied, her breath quickening. She felt a tug of fear shifting with every second that they remained in the dark. Hughes's laughter floated eerily, grotesquely familiar now. "Did you enjoy the preview?" he taunted, his voice slinking through the space like a wraith. "It gets much more thrilling when the lights go out." "Shut up," Sarah shouted, anger erupting a little too fiercely. It was as if she needed the sound of her own voice, a lifeline tethering her reality. "What are you going to do?" All was silent, the response still hanging in the stifling air. Then, a low hum began, resonating from the screen. The darkness seemed to quiver with the sound, vibrating against the walls. "What is happening?" Lily's voice, soft and frightened, cut through the thick dread. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, feeling feeble. She grasped her children's hands firmly. "We'll find a way out, together." The hum escalated as the television flickered into life, casting a faint glow amidst the encroaching shadows. Shapes danced within the light, grotesque and distorting, writhing like worms breaking through the soil. With a snap, the images shifted, each frame flashing gruesome snapshots of terrified faces. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized some of the faces, people from the neighborhood, past visitors to Hughes's twisted gatherings. Memories flooded in like high tide, and each one was laced with horror. "Mom! They look like they're there," Jason stammered, horror dawning in his innocent eyes. "Trapped," Sarah finished, her throat tight as realization clawed at her. "They didn't escape. What happened to them?" "Join us," whispered a voice that sounded like 1,000 whispers fusing into one. Faces in the images turned towards her, their eyes pleading, mouths forming unheard words. "No!" she yelled, shaking her head violently. "We need to get out. Right now." Frantically, she pulled her children towards the far wall, pressing against it as if it could shield them from the invading reality. As the warmth of their bodies pressed against her, she could feel Jason's trembling hand slip from her grip, drawn toward the glowing screen. "Jason, no!" He stumbled forward, entranced by the flickering light, as if it promised to swallow him whole. Sarah's chest tightened at the sight, an irresistible pull that she felt too. "Stop! You can't!" She dashed forward, ever faster, panic igniting every nerve in her body, but the shadows thickened, multiplying around her as if prepared to feast on her turmoil. The walls shuddered, and Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. As Hughes's laughter erupted again, louder and more maniacal, it sent a chill right down to her bones. "Tread lightly," he jeered, echoing across the humid air. "Once the dance begins, you want to leave." With one desperate lunge, Sarah snatched Jason's arm, pulling him back from the brink. Yet, in the moment of rescue, she gasped at the screen lighting up more profoundly, a vivid burst of red like blood dripping down. Hughes stood at the edge of the glow, watching with gleeful interest, the shapes of lost souls flickering just behind him, closer now, reaching out toward the children. Sarah's breath hitched. What do they want?" "Come and see," Hughes hissed, a maddening grin spreading across his face. But the real horror lived behind his eyes, an insatiable hunger. The lights flashed off, engulfing them once again in darkness, the air crackled with unseen tension. It was a terrifying game, one they had been unwilling participants in, and now, every breath felt like a countdown. "Stay in front of me," Sarah whispered fiercely, her eyes wide, feeling the heartbeat of the house quickening. Something was shifting, something else lurking beyond the veils of sight. What could come next? Anxiety danced in her chest, carrying the weight of impending doom. In the pitch black, an answer formed on the tip of the darkness. "You will see, soon enough." The air pulsed with an almost electric tension, the kind that made the hair on the back of Sarah's neck stand on end. Each breath felt shallow, echoing in her chest like the pounding of a war drum. She clenched Jason tightly, feeling his little body tremble, and cast a desperate glance at Lily, who huddled close, eyes wide with fright. "Mom," Jason whispered, his voice quavering. "What is happening? I don't like it here." "Neither do I," Sarah replied, forcing her voice to remain steady despite the tears pooling in her eyes. "But we're going to get through this. I promise." The darkness pressed in like a weight, heavy and unforgiving. She sensed movement around them, shadows lengthening, creeping nearer, almost breathing alongside them. Somewhere in that suffocating blackness, she could feel the remnants of those trapped souls, their despair mingling with her own rising terror. "What do we do?" Lily's voice broke the suffocating silence, sound so raw it made Sarah's heart ache. "We look for a way out," Sarah declared, her resolve hardening. She couldn't let fear overwhelm her. Not now. But the uncertainty felt like a knife, cutting through her bravado. "Can anyone hear us?" she shouted into the darkness. "Help!" Nothing answered, only silence layered with the fading echo of Hughes's laughter that hung around her like a thick fog mocking, chilling. Then, the hum returned, low at first but rising, vibrating with a sinister rhythm that matched the quickening beat of Sarah's heart. The light, once a mere flicker, exploded back into brilliance, illuminating the room with a garish glow. The images on the screen warped again, grotesque caricatures of desperate faces, twisting in anguish those poor souls still imprisoned in Hughes's web. Jason struggled to break free from Sarah's grasp. "I want to see," he cried, his voice heavy with childish curiosity and terror. She tightened her grip as he squirmed, the pull of the screen beckoning him, pulling at her every instinct. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, panic slicing through her. She could sense the tendrils of darkness creeping closer, eager to consume them. The bizarre images loomed larger, every face staring, pleading in horror. "Help us! Save us!" They screamed, even as their mouths moved silently. The screen pulsed, red and black, like a heartbeat. "Look away!" Sarah yelled, and instinctively began to back away, dragging her children with her. But they were drawn by the lights, their fear battling the intoxicating allure of the images flashing before them. And then came the whispers, eerie and melodic, weaving through the space. Join us," they seemed to call, promising safety in numbers, as if merging with the lost souls would somehow offer a way out. "No!" Sarah screamed, squeezing her eyes shut. "We are not joining anyone." But deep down, she felt the darkness stir, coiling tighter around them, pressing against her body like the suffocating grip of a predator. An exhilarating dread coursed through her veins as she glanced at Hughes, whose eyes gleamed with cruel anticipation, awaiting their submission to his game. "Tick-tock, tick-tock," he sang, voice dripping with malice. "Time is running out." In a flash, the screen snapped back to life, and Sarah felt her spirit lurch. An image of her own face materialized, distorted and twisted in fear, caught in the same trap as the others. "Mom!" Jason shouted, panic coloring the edges of his voice. "Don't look!" she yelled, but it was too late. The rotational pull of the darkness tugged stronger, a tangible force lapping at their heels. The walls around them vibrated, exuding a low growl, a warning or a song that sent shivers racing down their spines. Desperation clawed at Sarah's heart. They needed to escape, but to where? The light flickered again, revealing a narrow door hidden in the shadows, barely formed yet beckoning like a phantom. "Mom! We have to go!" Lily urged, pointing toward the door, terror straining her voice, but as Sarah took a step toward that flickering escape, Hughes's laughter soared higher, bouncing mercilessly off the walls. "You can try to run, but you'll only find another game." A sudden feeling of dread twisted her gut deep. What lay behind that door? Would it lead to freedom or further into Hughes's nightmarish playground? Is it worth the risk? Sarah murmured, feeling the cold sweat trickle down her spine. A deafening silence enveloped them, thick and all-consuming. Time hung suspended, every second stretching into an eternity, suffocating them with indecision and fear. "Mom, what do we do?" Jason asked, his innocent voice breaking through the stillness. "Just one moment," she whispered, feeling the weight of Hugh's gaze upon them. And in that instant, the door began to close, the darkness swirling to reclaim its prize. With her heart racing, the choice became clear. "Run!" Sarah shouted, plunging toward the door as it threatened to vanish into the shadows. Would they make it out alive? Or would they become part of Hugh's horror as well? Answers lingered like shadows behind her, just out of reach. The moment Sarah lunged for the door, a frigid wave crashed against her, as if the very essence of darkness was fighting to keep her trapped. It had teeth, razor-sharp, biting into the edges of her resolve. Behind her, Hugh's laughter morphed into a hideous cacophony, echoing off the walls like a twisted soundtrack to a nightmare. "Mom! Wait!" Jason screamed, tugging at her sleeve desperately. But the door twisted more into the shadows, its outline fading as if made of smoke. The air thickened, wrapped around her like chains, suffocating. With a primal scream, Sarah yanked Jason and Lily, pulling them closer. "Not now!" she roared, slamming her shoulder against the door as it began to slip away. A flash of something cold and sharp grazed her skin, and she winced, a prickling sensation racing up her arm. Glancing down, she saw the faint imprint of a hand, a ghostly reminder of the spirits trapped within this hell. "Push it!" Lily cried, her voice sharp with a mixture of fear and urgency. The determination in her daughter's eyes drove Sarah forward. She pressed against the door with all her might, heart racing, desperate to break free from the suffocating darkness. Another wave of laughter spilled through the room, mocking her attempts. "You can't escape, Sarah. Just play my game, it will be ever so much fun." Hugh's voice slithered around her, suffocating, taunting. "No!" she gasped, heat rising into her cheeks. The children needed her to be strong. The door quivered, a sliver of light seeping through the cracks, a beacon in the abyss. With another forceful shove, the door slid open wider, and raw, blinding light flooded over her. She felt Jason tugging at her, his tiny hand clenched in hers. "Mom, go!" And they burst through, tumbling into an endless hallway. It felt alive, pulsing like the heartbeat of a beast awakening from slumber. Walls dripped with a sinister glistening, dripping like blood, as whispers filled the air, swirling like a storm, quickening and grasping. Lily stumbled, nearly losing her footing. "What is this place?" She looked down the corridor, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and a fleeting glimmer of hope. "It must be a way out," Sarah shouted, though the dread curled around her gut again. "Keep moving." But the walls closed in, stretching and twisting, changing shape as if they were alive. The whispers grew louder, a discordant symphony coaxing Sarah to turn back, to join the lost souls they had escaped. Her heart thudded, throbbing against her ribs. She held on to her courage with a vice grip. Suddenly, a hollow thud echoed behind them, and she dared to glance back. The once dim entryway yawned open, and Hughes stood there, grinning, a grotesque mask of gleeful malice. "You think you've won?" "It's just begun." His hands waved, a flicker of shadows morphing into figures that surged toward her with relentless speed, hungry souls clawing to reclaim what was lost. "Run!" Sarah shouted, sparking movements in her children. They sprinted down the hallway as imprints of sorrow and despair slithered toward them, the echoes of lost hope screaming in their wake. They raced past countless doors, each more sinister than the last, each one whispering her name, each a reminder of the lives snuffed out by the wretched creature stalking them. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but she could not stop. Ignoring the burning in her lungs, Sarah pressed on, dodging the shadows that reached for her, that grasped at her clothes like desperate hands. Another hollow thud resonated, this time from a door behind them, and she felt the heat of Hugh's breath upon her neck, cold and rancid, consuming her resolve. "Almost there," Sarah urged, lungs screaming for air, whirling at the sight of an open window at the end of the maze. Just beyond lay fresh air and the shimmering promise of freedom. Could they really be free? Just as they drew closer, the ground beneath them heaved. The walls quivered, vibrating with anger, and a deep rumble echoed. The door behind them slammed shut with a loud crash, the shadows retreating from the blast like scared mice. But that Relief was short-lived. Lily gasped, pointing ahead. "Mom, look." A figure emerged from the shadows, a hooded, whispering entity, face obscured. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Choose wisely, Sarah," it hissed, voice an ethereal chill that froze the blood in her veins. "Face the truth, or succumb to your nightmares." Sarah faltered, dread flooding her system. Was this their salvation or peril? Time slipped away faster than she could think. "Which path will you take?" it whispered, leading her to an impossible choice. And in that moment, the haunting sound of Hugh's laughter echoed loud and clear around them. Was escaping truly an option? The final challenge loomed ahead. A chill swept through Sarah as the cloaked figure hovered at the threshold, an ink-black void entwined in its folds. The contours of its form twisted, shifting like smoke, and it seemed to revel in the fear that hung thick in the air. "A simple choice. It is all that stands between you and your fate," it cooed, voice dripping with malevolence. Sarah's heart raced as Hugh's laughter echoed in her mind, taunting. "What truth?" She managed to spit out, the words of protest against the suffocating dread. The figure drew closer, whispers from the shadows wrapping around it, making its shape flicker as if torn between realms. "Your truth runs deep, Sarah. Face it, and you may yet find freedom for you and your children. Deny it, and remain forever lost in his grasp." "Mom!" Jason cried, his voice a desperate plea. "We can't stay here." "Shush!" Sarah snapped, urgency brewing within her. She glanced at the open window, where daylight glimmered like honey, sweet and inviting. It was just within reach, yet she felt the heavy hand of darkness pulling her back. With a trembling hand, she pointed down the hallway. "It's the only way we survive. We keep moving." But freedom felt further away than ever. The walls were now snug against her shoulders, the narrowness closing them in like the jaws of a beast. Panic surged, a tide of adrenaline coursing through her as she darted her eyes back to the figure. "What do you want from me?" "It's not what I wish," it hissed, voice low and resonating. "It's what he desires. The truth you hide will unearth your most hidden fears." Sarah felt Jason clutching her hand tighter, his small fingers digging into her skin. "Mom, please." He trembled, tears spilling down his cheeks. Lily stood beside him, her face pale and drawn, mouth quivering with unsaid words. "Your children cannot shield you from the choices you must face." The figure tossed its arms outward, revealing doorways behind them, doorways that pulsed with the shadowy forms of the lost souls, each one whispering their regrets, their pain, their loss. Every door was a potential prison. "Mom!" Lily shouted, always the beacon of bravery. "We have to go now." Sarah turned, looking toward the window once more. Her instincts clawed at her. Would she choose to face the specter of her past or stumble toward the light, not knowing what awaited her on the other side? The echoes of Hugh's laughter rang in her ears, a cruel reminder of what was at stake. "I can fight him," she whispered, a determination surging to the surface. "I can protect my family." "Then you must face the darkness." The figure vanished, replaced by a swirling maelstrom of shadow. Its voice echoed, warped and condescending. "But know this, the truth is not what you think. It's far more twisted." Without waiting for another moment, Sarah yanked her children toward the window. "Follow me," she urged, heart pounding, legs propelling them forward. Searing heat surged through her, not from the strength of escape, but the anticipation of the unknown. They leaped toward the window, adrenaline pushing them beyond what they thought possible. Light enveloped them, pure, relentless, blinding. The world outside beckoned, but the influence of the darkness clung to their heels, urging them backward, into the dark embrace. Suddenly, a guttural roar erupted behind them, and the shadows reformed into solid figures, twisted versions of their own thoughts, lurking uncertainty pouring from their forms. They were faced with their fears, the very essence of what they fought to escape. Sarah stopped, breath hitching in her throat. "What do I do?" She whispered to no one that in that instant, everything halted. The shadows paused, and a hush fell over them, as if the air drew in its breath, waiting for a decision that a moment stretched and twisted. "Mom!" Jason cried, gripping her again, begging her to move. But the darkness weighed heavy, the whispering grew louder. "I have to choose." Sarah screamed into the void, as her heart shattered under the weight of unbearable choices. The walls pulsed, shadows closing in, and the echo of laughter grew far too familiar. She had only moments left. Which truth would she face? And would they survive whatever lay beyond this nightmare? Light enveloped them, blinding and suffocating. The warmth of the sun felt like a cruel joke against the icy tendrils of fear that crawled down Sarah's spine. She shielded her eyes as they landed on the grass, droplets of dew glistening like promises unkept. But the world around them felt wrong, twisted and alien. Lily's voice broke through the haze. "Did we make it, Mom?" Her eyes were wide, searching, hopeful. Sarah's heart pounded in her ears. I don't know." Turning back, she peered into the window they had just leaped from. Instead of the dark hallway, a deep, swirling void stared back, beckoning, whispering enticements that crawled into her mind. "Mom!" Jason tugged at her sleeve, the tension in his voice bringing her back to reality. The shadows, their fears filled the window, squirming, reaching, pleading. She felt cornered, trapped. The laughter from Hughes echoed in the air, taunting her with the possibility of their demise. "You think you've escaped? You're just running from the truth." "No." Sarah shouted back into the void, her voice trembling. "I will protect my children." With each heartbeat, the world felt heavier. She crouched low, wrapping her arms around her kids as if to shield them from everything, nothing and everything at once. "Stay close." Lily nodded, her face pale as she looked around. "Where are we?" A massive crack tore through the ground nearby, and the earth rumbled ominously. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, growing bolder, individually taking on forms monstrous reflections of her innermost fears. "Look!" Jason pointed toward a dilapidated house, standing eerily at the end of the overgrown yard. The windows boarded up like shattered dreams, the door creaking as the wind whispered secrets long buried. "Mom, we have to go." Jason's voice quivered with urgency. "Do we?" Sarah hesitated, dread curling in her gut. What if it's worse inside? The shadows roared behind them, threats heavy and tangible. "You can't escape your past," they hissed in unison, a cacophony of fears that rattled in her skull. "Run!" Sarah snapped, fear overwhelming her as she urged her children toward the house. Heart racing, they sprinted across the uneven ground, each step laden with unspoken dread. As they reached the door, it swung open as if inviting them to a dinner of horrors. "Empty," Sarah whispered, her breath hanging in the air. "No. We shouldn't." Jason pulled back, his small frame trembling. "We have to know." Sarah insisted, shoving the door wide. Inside, darkness loomed thick and suffocating. The smell of decay and something metallic clawed at her throat. "Stay together." Lily grabbed Jason's hand, eyes darting around, absorbing the unfamiliar surroundings. As they stepped inside, the door creaked ominously behind them, sealing them in with no way back. Shadows surged within the corners. Each room they passed felt like a glimpse into a hell she'd never known, walls lined with portraits of sorrow, moments trapped in time. She could feel eyes watching, lurking. "Mom, it feels wrong," Jason whimpered, clenching his fists. "Just a little further," Sarah encouraged, fear igniting a primal determination within her. Yet each step felt heavier, the air thickening, choking. Suddenly, with a cacophony of screams and laughter, the shadows coalesced into a whirlwind, and everything around them shifted. They stood in a dark room brimming with twisted reflections of their lives, everything they'd tried to run from, the mistakes, the choices. "What are these?" Sarah gasped as figures emerged, lost moments, grief, regrets clawing at her. "Look closer, Sarah," a voice echoed, so familiar yet distorted. As she stepped back, she found herself face to face with Hughes grinning, eyes gleaming with malice. "Welcome home. It's time to face your demons." Fury ignited within her. "No. You want to take us." But the shadows circled tighter, constricting, whispering their tales of despair. In that moment, Sarah understood. The truth was not just about facing her fears. It was about confronting the very person who had twisted them into nightmares. "Who are you?" she yelled. Clutching her children as the shadows began to seep through their skin, tugging at their very essence. Silence enveloped them, the room pulsating with energy. "You'll know soon enough. Make your choice, Sarah. The night's not over." What lay ahead felt more terrifying than anything she'd faced before. Did she have the strength to confront the truth? Or would the shadows engulf them all? The shadows tightened around them, a suffocating grip that threatened to pull them under. Sarah's heart raced wildly as she clutched her children, their small hands trembling in hers. The darkness felt alive, pulsating with a restless hunger, echoing the unresolved pain that lingered in the air. "Mom, I'm scared," Jason whimpered, his voice barely a whisper, choked with dread. "Stay close," she whispered back, her own fear clashing with a fierce need to protect them. The room vibrated with whispers, 1,000 voices clawing at her sanity. She wanted to scream but held it deep inside. They had to survive this. Hughes stepped closer, his figure a cruel silhouette against the chaotic shadows. "You've been so busy running, Sarah. Every choice brought you here," he taunted, voice smooth like silk but sharp as a knife. "What do you want from us?" she demanded, finally summoning the courage to meet his gaze. "To help you awaken. To reveal the faces of your fear." He gestured toward the swirling figures that danced at the edges of their vision. They shifted, morphing into scenes that stung like venom. Memories, haunting and poignant, twisted through the air, moments of betrayal, loss, anger, and regret. "Those are just illusions," Sarah shouted, defiant yet trembling. But even as she spoke, she felt the weight of truth press against her chest. "Belief fuels their power," Hughes mocked, his laughter echoing off the walls. Suddenly, one of the figures darted toward her, a reflection of the hardest decision she had ever made. It hovered before her like a specter, thick with sorrow. Sarah gasped, taking a step back. Did she dare confront this? The guilt washed over her in waves, threatening to drown her. "Mom!" Lily cried, her voice wretched with panic as another shadow lunged toward Jason. Sarah's instincts kicked in, she broke forward, shielding her son, feeling the icy grip of despair skimming against her back. "No! Get away from them!" Sarah seethed, desperation electrifying her movements. She instinctively grasped a nearby shard of glass, one of the remnants of the room's broken history. "I want to let you take them." The laughter of Hughes rang louder, blending with the cacophony of whispers, an ecstatic symphony of dread and chaos. The shadows hissed, retreating momentarily before regrouping, steeling themselves as if preparing a final assault. "Defiance," Hughes said through gritted teeth, eyes ablaze with vindictive joy. "That's what I want. Fight for them, and feel them slip away." The ghostly figures surged toward Sarah, each one a reminder of her failures. A wave of nausea rolled over her as she realized that they were not just shadows, they embodied the very essence of her past. "Mom!" Jason screeched, his voice raw as he struggled against the weight in the air. His tiny frame shook, and she saw terror etched across his face, fury ignited inside of Sarah. She couldn't afford to falter. With a fierce cry, she lunged, shattering the shadowy apparition before her with the shard of glass. The echo of it reverberated throughout the room, followed by a pulse that sent a shockwave through the darkness. "What have you done?" Hughes hissed, the malice in his voice shifting to panic. "Something you can't control," she shouted, brandishing the glass like a weapon. "You want the truth? Then let us face it together. But as the shadows writhed and shifted, a new, deeper darkness bubbled to the surface. It felt colder than ice, more sinister. Something more terrifying was awakening behind Hughes, a vast entity born from fear itself. What is happening? Lily cried, sensing the change. Mom, it's too strong. Jason shrieked, gripping her tightly as the walls began to tremble. Sarah's heart raced, sheer terror gripped her as a new form began to manifest, a shape converging from the shadows, larger and more menacing than anything they had faced. We must go. She screamed, yanking her children close. But as they turned to escape, the door slammed shut, sealed by the very darkness they had tried to flee. Despair clawed at her throat, her protections crumbling. Now, Hughes whispered. Voice draped in dark promise. Now you will truly see. As dread filled the air, Sarah realized that the shadows carried a deeper secret. The edges of her mind crackled with awareness. To survive, they would have to become part of this ghastly dance. Could she truly save them all? Or had they only begun to uncover horrors they were never prepared to face? The oppressive darkness enveloped them, thick as smoke, pushing against their lungs and hearts. Sarah felt every heartbeat thud through her body, loud in the silence, drowning out the mocking laughter of Mr. Hughes. This couldn't be the end. Not here, not now. She had fought too hard, lost too much to let shadows extinguish their light. Stay close. Sarah shouted, wrapping her arms around Jason and Lily, pulling them tightly against her. Her resolve held firm even as her heart raced with terror. We're going to break free together. The walls quaked in response to her determination, rattling with a booming resonance that felt almost alive. The truth will set you free if you're brave enough to face it, Hughes's voice taunted, deep and echoing like thunder. But do you have the courage? No, Sarah breathed, clarity blossoming in the swirling chaos around them. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's fighting despite it. With a quick glance at Jason, his face painted with concern, and Lily, whose eyes brimmed with tears, her heart swelled with the fierce love of a mother. She could not fail them again. The shadows trembled, sensing her defiance, shifting on their edges like a whirlpool ready to pull them under. Mom! Jason yelped as a shadowy figure lunged towards him. Sarah acted instinctively, pushing her children behind her as she confronted the apparition, feeling the cold breath of its despair on her skin. You're nothing. She growled, brandishing the shard of glass like a sword. We won't let you take our hope. As she struck the apparition, it crumbled into wisps of darkness, dissipating into the air. The walls pulsed violently at her declaration, and Sarah realized something vital. She held the power to confront her past, to face the shadows that haunted her. One by one, she shattered illusions and phantom fears, each gust of determination forging a path to freedom. Let us go. She shouted, urgency spilling from her heart. The path ahead revealed itself in segments, illuminated by their fierce resolve. Rushing toward the door, she could feel Hughes closing in behind them, a malevolent force distorted with rage. You think you can escape? There's nowhere to run. But Sarah pushed forward, guiding her children through the growing light that seemed to pierce through the heavy darkness. Don't look back, just keep moving. At the threshold, Hughes's monstrous silhouette loomed, a desperate shroud filled with shadows of lost souls. You'll always belong to me. His voice boomed, vibrating through her bones. No. She shouted back, facing the darkness head-on. We choose our family, our love over your darkness. The words thundered like a battle cry. Light exploded behind them, engulfing Hughes's form, threatening to pull him into the void he commanded. With one last leap, they surged forward, and Sarah felt her heart race, mingling with the frantic breaths of her children beside her. As they crossed the threshold, an intense silence fell over them. For a heart-stopping moment, they stood on the brink between the worlds of light and shadow, their souls vibrating with the remnants of terror. Then, without warning, the darkness shattered, cascading into blinding light. It enveloped them completely, soft yet electric, collapsing in on itself, engulfing the terrible screeches of despair. The world transformed around them, shifting from oppressive blackness into a bright suburban morning. They tumbled onto their front lawn, the sun warming their skin, the sound of rustling leaves welcoming them back to reality. Sarah's chest heaved as she took in the familiar sights: the scattered leaves, the welcoming sunlight slanting through the trees. "We did it, we made it," Jason squealed, bouncing with a mix of disbelief and relief. Lily's tears sparkled as she looked up at her mom, awe-filled. "You were so brave, Mom." Sarah hugged them close, laughter mixing with tears, filling the air with love and warmth. They were safe. Together, they had triumphed over the fears that had nearly consumed them. But as they stood there, basking in the sun's embrace, a cold gust of wind brushed past, accompanied by a dreadful whisper from far off. "This isn't the end, Sarah. I'll be waiting." A shudder crawled down her spine, and with it, leave a lingering doubt, shadows flitting across her mind. But for now, bustling winds of autumn beckoned, and the warmth of the sun chased away the peril they had narrowly escaped. "Let's make Halloween great again, guys," Sarah declared, grinning fiercely. This was the moment to reclaim their lives, to celebrate every day free from Hugh's grasp. With laughter echoing in the cool air, they roamed their neighborhood, a family back together, cherishing the magic of life, knowing they had weathered the darkest nightmare, and emerged triumphant. But deep in their hearts, a shared truth resided: they would remain vigilant, forever aware of the shadows lurking close. Now, here's where you come in. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive deep into these thrilling adventures. Smash that like button, and help us feed the algorithm, because every click matters. Don't wait even one more second to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic conclusion. Let your voice echo out, and of course, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the magic while we can.